That's all right. I just wish that one of these guys had something that have somebody to train.
Normally right now is skills in that's the best. So most guidance in charge which equates to June, July, and then like
It's 6 o'clock this evening, so we will get going. I will call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. Please join me for a flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Assembly of the City and Borough of Sitka would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional first people of Sitka, the gratitude we receive on Ani. Jess, roll call, please.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Present.
Mr. Mosher,
Here.
Miss Duncan,
Here.
Mr. Yestak,
Here.
Mr. Christensen, Mr. Pike,
Here.
Miss Carlson,
Here.
Great time. Great time. The correspondence or agenda changes this evening. Special reports. Do I have anyone here for government to government? Municipal boards, commissions, committees? Municipal departments? School district? And scheduled students and guests. Seeing none, that'll bring us this evening to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item off of tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
Hi, my name is Lorena Marcelo, and tonight I urge the Assembly to support public investment of childcare, particularly for infants and toddlers. There are many things Sitkans do to support children. We've got a great public library, a community playground, and many extracurricular activities for kids. However, as a community, we are failing to provide a sufficient number of licensed childcare spots for our population, especially for kids under school age. This keeps working adults in Sitka out of the labor pool. The lack of childcare likely drives some of the continued out-migration from our city and results in reduced family size. CETA's latest trends newsletter cited a 13% drop in the age 20 to 64 population between 2013 and 2022, and an 18% reduction in the population of youth under age 19 over the same period. Reversing these trends will be necessary for Sitka's continued economic situation. My family has been part of an estimated 93% of Sitkans without a licensed childcare spot for an infant, and now 88% unable to get a spot for a toddler. We have been on a wait list for a licensed daycare spot since I was in my second trimester of pregnancy back in 2020, and it took until last month to find out we might at least get partial coverage via a preschool this fall. How many years are families supposed to wait for certainty? Until a child reaches kindergarten at 5 or 6 years of age? Does it even make sense to raise a child or multiple children when doing so might mean tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost income? Will we keep seeing reduced school district enrollment in Sitka as we neglect the needs of families with young children? Those are the future pipeline of our K-12 students. Will Search Hospital eventually need to close its labor and delivery services due to lack of births in the facility? Are we seeing a brain drain to localities and states with better childcare infrastructure? The U.S. as a whole, Alaska and Sitka must have government investment in early child care as we do with K-12 schools. That ensures providers can have competitive wages and benefits commensurate with their experience. Until then, we should not be surprised when workers put their own bottom lines first in career choice and jump to better compensated jobs. We are in an urgent situation with the lack of childcare in Sitka and in Alaska, so please consider significant government investment in childcare to make the sector competitive with other employers. Thank you for your time.
evening. My name is Joel Hansen. I've just got a couple of quick things here for you. Those of you who have been up and down Monastery Street, off of Lincoln Street lately, have probably noticed that there's been a lot of work going on at the Pacific High Gardens. And I just thought I'd give you an update on that. You know that there's a lot of work that the students themselves did toward the end of the school year. Here in the off-school year, we've been working hard as volunteers on the greenhouse project, and we've got it almost fully sheathed. We just hung the doors today, so it should be an enclosed greenhouse probably by the end of the week. Just thought I'd let you know that. I also wanted to let you know that on the 10th of July, just before the day before your next assembly meeting, there will be a community town hall meeting to discuss the proposed Sitka Local Foods Network and Transition Sitka Greenhouse proposal. It's going to be in the newspaper and on social media, but I'm hoping that some of the assembly members will take the time to attend. There'll be probably quite a few members of the public there to discuss both their concerns and their support. It will give you all a good feel for what the nature of the project is and what its prospects are. Thank you very much.
Mr. Leach stated in an email of June 15.
If you can state your name for the record, please.
Okay. My name is Christian Fagan. Mr. Leach stated in his letter of email from June 15, Beatty's salary, quote, increases year over year, average less than all other employees of the CBS. In 2019, the police chief grade was 52.17. In 2021, Mr. Beatty's third year of employment, the police chief rate was raised 61% from 52.96 to 84.13. Mr. Beatty received $180,379 in 2021. Mr. Beatty received $190,158 in 2022 after 3 years on the job. Mr. Leach stated that Mr. Beatty's pay is so high because, quote, he does not receive any benefits. Mr. Beatty received $9,011 in employer-paid peers SBS in 2022. He received $8,754 in employer-paid peers SBS in 2021. Why is Mr. Beatty hired on a year-to-year contract? Was he hired as a temporary fill-in? Is there active advertising or recruiting being done to fill this job? Mr. Beatty's employment status. Mr. Beatty, quote, receives a salary for his services and is currently an employee of the, as stated by Mr. Leach. He receives, quote, employer-paid peers SBS benefits currently. Is he permitted to collect a peer's pension while working in another peer's position, question mark? Is this in fact the double dipping that state law prohibits, lack of bonding on Mr. Beatty? How is the Assembly legally responsible in not requiring a bond from Mr. Beatty? He handles city funds, legal and confidential documents, develops legally binding policies, oversees employees, and is authorized to arrest, fine, detain, and use lethal force. Mr. Beatty has been the subject of 2 lawsuits, and there is a third ongoing. Is it financially smart for the Assembly not to bond Mr. Beatty? Does the Assembly expect Sitkans to bear the cost of lawsuits against Mr. Beatty? Most police chiefs are bonded, even police officers are bonded. Is Mr. Beatty not bondable? Mr. Beatty's daughter, hired in the police department in violation of Alaska state law, prohibits nepotism. Mr. Leach admitted that he hired Ms. Beatty's daughter from out of town, quote, as dispatcher, quote, on a temporary term, when we were clearly short-handed. Did Mr. Leach advertise in Sitka to fill this position? Was she hired twice in 2 different short-handed periods when there were Sitkans who needed work? Mr. Beatty's relative by blood being employed in the same department or agency directly violates Alaska state law. Mr. Leach attempted to cover for this violation by saying the daughter was, quote, supervised by LT and then by me to ensure that Chief Beatty did not have any influence over her employment. How supervision was conducted has nothing to do with and is no excuse for this clear violation of Alaska state law.
Good evening, I'm John Little. I'm a summertime resident of Sitka. I've been coming up here for 20 years. I've got a boat in the harbor. I love you guys. We're trying to get the numbers painted on the dock at Crescent Harbor. And it seemed impossible. And I'll confess that I was the one that painted number 7 dock many years ago at Eliason. And it was shortly thereafter that the rest of them all got painted. I don't think I want to do that down here. It's really confusing. I frequently help local people who live in Sitka find where they're looking. And it isn't just visitors that are lost, other people are lost. Now, if somebody has a heart attack or falls overboard or whatever, and you're on your phone to 911, you should have some idea what to say to the other end of the line. And there is no system that is available for anybody. The ramps could be lettered A to D, A, B, C, D, and the great spot to put that would be on the top of the ramp, up at the roof. You could put, and there's no sign that says Crescent Harbor either, by the way, anywhere in town. There's a little map that's by the shed that if you look at the map and see the Crescent Harbor, there is a word that says Crescent. So there's no sign that says Crescent Harbor. I would think people would like to know. It's just a matter of public safety and being polite and interesting. You know, we could take all the road signs off the intersections. You know, why not? So it would seem about as fair as the dock. The numbering system is confusing. On dock 3, where I am, there's numbers on the electric meter that say MA12 and MA11. Now, a visitor would have no idea what that meant. That's the first time MA numbers have appeared on the dock. And, I mean, sure, if they walked on up the dock, they might be able to see some other numbers and begin to get the message. But it's very confusing. Any questions, I guess? I mean, can you tell me what is, I have volunteered to paint the numbers, by the way, and that hasn't gone anywhere. The stencils are cut. The harbor master has the stencils. I would be glad to paint them. I'm a volunteer. I fixed all the windows at Fine Arts Camp. I've been coming up here for 20 years.
Thank you, sir. We're not allowed for a two-way conversation during this process, but I'm sure the assembly will get in touch with you if they have any thoughts.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The assembly, we're not allowed to have two-way conversation. I know you asked if there's any questions.
Okay.
This isn't the time for it, but I'm sure the assembly will be in touch if we have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Richard Green, and I'd like to say that it was so nice to see a few fellow persons to be heard and listening to their thoughts. This is exactly why persons to be heard should be heard. And even though it's only 3 minutes, there were 3 good ideas. Child care, some concerns about individuals, which are legitimate for them here, as well as, I think, a brilliant idea, which, having lived here more than 20 years, why the fingers are not painted and the ramps not painted. So I think that hopefully somebody is taking notes and will do it. And the thing is that the reason I come up here is part of what we're going to be celebrating on July 4th, and that is the ability to speak and the ability to potentially, voice grievance and so forth. The 4th of July is the commemoration of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And believe it or not, a lot of people may not know that. I've seen these interesting YouTubes when they ask people walking on the beach, what's July 4th? And people can't figure it out. But at the Second Continental Congress in July 4th, 1776, 56 members of that group signed the Declaration of Independence. And to me, that is clearly the birth of our nation. But it is more than that. It is why we are here today. If we didn't have that event, I do not know what language we would be speaking, probably Russian, or maybe we would be British citizens. Most people do know how the Declaration of Independence starts, which is when in the course of human events. But not many people know how it ends, which is we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honors. And I do not know in today's world how many people would say that. The fates of all 56 individuals who signed this declaration are actually known and very interesting, and I'd be happy to relate it to you if you give me an extra 15 minutes. But I don't think that will happen. So the important thing is we are celebrating something so very important, and I think we, at least according to what I am reading, we are letting this go. We are letting our beautiful, wonderful country just disappear, and we actually forget the meaning of the 4th and how we need to respect it and love America. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jason Christner.
There's a button on the bottom,
Push it.
please. Perfect, there you go.
All right. Good evening. I'm Jason Christner. I'm representing the Public Safety Employees Association of the Sitka Police Department. I'm the vice president of that association. I'm also an officer of the Sitka Police Department. I've not prepared a statement for you tonight, but I did email each of you a letter today to kind of augment a report I believe that you received from the administrator or the chief, I'm not sure which one, regarding the status of the Sitka Police Department. Just want to sit before you and say that there are some issues to be aware of if you're not already. Our jail is currently staffed at one jailer. We're allotted 5 jailers. Our dispatch, we have 3 trainees. We're supposed to have 6 dispatchers, so we have 3 trainees. They're not through their training yet. We're supposed to have 14 patrol officers. We're at the onset of August, we'll be at 7. So that's 50%. In addition to what those 50% officers are doing, they are the Band-Aid, so to speak, of the Sitka Police Department. We are covering the jail. So tonight, there's 1 person in jail. That's being covered by the 2 officers that are also responding to calls in Sitka and addressing needs here. In addition to that, dispatch is being covered by patrol officers. So you can see the short-term issue, but also a long-term issue of burning out your patrol officers. Again, I hope you read the letter I sent to you. I welcome any questions. I know this isn't a forum, but certainly know how to reach me. You have my email, but PSCA would like to reiterate the need for significant action by the city to help change the tide where the Sitka Police Department has been headed over the past year. Attracting new employees and retaining the ones still holding on should be of paramount importance to the chief, the administrator, and all of you. PSCA will be a willing partner towards this goal, but the leadership must come from the city, and it needs your immediate attention. Thank you.
Anyone else for persons to be heard this evening? Seeing none, there is no consent agenda. That'll bring us to unfinished business. Item A, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2023-09S on second and final reading and amending Title VI, Business Licenses and Regulations of the Sitka General Code by updating Chapter 6.16, Sales on Public Property.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 23-09S. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation. Jess?
Mr. Yestak?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 on second reading on 2309.
Thank you. Item D, please. New business first reading, item D.
I move to approve ordinance 2023-13 on first reading, amending Title VI, Business Licenses and Regulations of the Sitka General Code by updating Chapter 6.19.030, permit required for commercial operations involving organized excursions in areas subject to this chapter.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 23-13. John, do you have a brief introduction on this one?
I'll let Mr. Rosas come up if that's okay, and you can
Yes, please.
introduce it, and then I'll have a question for him as well. Get there.
He's bringing coffee to introduce us to as well.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Assembly. Tony Rosas, ECH Manager. What I'm proposing is changing the current code that says one sign per vendor square to two signs, no more than two signs. One thing that I've noticed this year, a little bit last year, but this year as well, is that with the way the shifts are staggered, one coming in at 8, another one coming in at 11. When that second shift gets here, there's hardly any tours left. And the way the current code is written with only one sign, there's a lot of different companies out there that have 2 or 3 different excursions under their one permit. And what I'm asking is for them to be able to put a second sign up in their square, within their square, that also advertises for their second tour. Again, that is on their one business permit or business license.
Perfect, thank you. If we have any questions, we'll call you back up. Appreciate it. Is there any public comment on ordinance 23-13?
Good evening, this is Richard Ween. When I read it, the agenda item, it was a little confusing as to what it was going to be, increasing in a square 1 to 2 signs. Now the question was this going to be from the same corporate entity, or will other corporate entities be allowed to do it? It kind of makes no sense at all that you're only allowed to advertise one, even though you may have others. Is this like Secret Santa here, where you just don't know what's going on, and how they can't advertise on multiple activities on a single board? But just as important, this may be the opportunity that individuals could sublet. I know that was an issue which had come up earlier. Can individuals who have permits allow other people to do it? So if you're going to have a second sign and you want to increase the ability of people to partay in Sitka, then it may not be an unreasonable thing to allow them to share with other excursions to put an additional sign. It only actually encourages an individual who has a friend who has a business to put that sign on there. So you might as well make it on the up and at least get the maximal time on that. It really wasn't very clear in the documentation that was sent, but I think that this could be improved and allow many more individuals to advertise and to offer fun excursions for people who come to Sitka. So I think you need to think about this a little more and refine it. Thank you.
Anyone else on 23-13? Back to the assembly for deliberation. John?
Mayor, if you don't mind, I have some questions for Tony, if he could.
Yeah, please, Tony.
And answer them. So the same concerns I had just were brought up, and I wanted to give Tony the opportunity to kind of talk through those. With the auction process that we did out front, those spaces went for a substantial amount of money, and one of the requirements is that they cannot sublease the space. So I know these seem like simple questions, but the first one is, if it's an A-frame sign, can they not just put the two things on opposite sides of the signs instead of two signs? And then what compliance measures will you have in place to ensure that the second offering is actually the same business under the same license and that the space is not being subleased?
For the signs, and the reason why we used to do, in past years, we used to have two signs. It always worked out great because it wasn't as much as now they can see a different tour. It's bringing their other tour more to the forefront with pictures and so they don't have to look at one sign and try to pick and choose and try to find whatever they're trying to find. It gives them the opportunity to advertise a little bit better for their second or for their other tour. What was the second part, John?
It's about the compliance for subleasing, because as you know, with an auction process, you do your best to avoid collusion, but if there's plans to sublease when sublease is not allowed, what compliance measures do you have to ensure that the person that's operating out of there and their second sign is actually registered under that business?
So during the permitting process, there's different spots on the permit that they fill out as far as what they are offering from that square. And that's one of the things that's part of the permit, and that's some of the things that is expected and is part of it. So in the process of if they were to get a second sign, I just refer back to the permit to see what they wrote down, to see what they're offering out of that square.
Anything else for Tony while he's up there?
So in the memo, it said previously we never allowed more than two, and then we decided that we were going to limit it to one. Why did we want to pull it back and sort of limit the number of signs from 2 to 1?
What I think happened is I think it was a little overlooked. When we rewrote the code with all the new permitting system, that seemed to be what it was going to be. Once the season started, and once some of the vendors were coming up and said, hey, why can't I put a second sign? And I'm like, well, let's find out why, and let's try to make it so that we can. But it just, in the process of rewriting the code, that's kind of how it ended up, and that's how it stayed.
I guess I was just trying to, in my mind, formulate, it wasn't a crowding issue.
It wasn't.
Okay. So
No.
by having 2 signs, they could be 3 feet, correct?
Yes.
So if you have 2 signs, you've got 6 feet across, that's not going to crowd out the...
No.
Okay.
No.
And then the second one is, if I'm hearing it correctly, what you're saying is right now they have 1 sign where they're trying to squish all of their offerings.
Yes.
This would just allow them to create 2 signs so that it's more space to say, not only do I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. In compliance, you at the beginning came up and asked them to provide everything that would be offered. So when you look at that, if they had 4 things listed on there, the 2 signs shouldn't have more than 4 things.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you for painting that picture. I was just having a hard time from the memo trying to figure out, and that clarifies helps quite a bit. Thank you.
And again, it's just having that second sign is just to bring what they have more to the forefront so that people can see that and have more of an opportunity to find something that they like. So.
In the past, there's been 2 signs per vendor. How many of them offhand have utilized that in the past?
As of right now, off the top of my head, I think we have at least 3 different companies that offer a sea and land, or offer a tour or a walk. So it is utilized. It was utilized a great deal last year and in previous years. And again, that's what I'm trying to get it to be this for this one here too. So.
Tony, I just want to thank you for finding an opportunity within code to work with our vendors and within your flow out here. I think we need to continue to look for opportunities that we can help facilitate our vendors out here. So I appreciate you finding a hard point and working to correct that. I think that's going to go over very well with anybody who does business here. So if you find another opportunity, please bring it forward.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else for Tony before you? Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Further assembly deliberation? Chris?
I think all my questions were pretty well answered here. You know, when I first saw this, I was also a little bit concerned about collusion, but it sounds like there's some guards to protect against that. And knowing that everything's going to come in under one business license, you know, I feel pretty comfortable moving forward, and I appreciate Tony trying to make things better for our vendors. So I'm for it.
Jess?
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Mosier?
Yes.
Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Ms. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Yestad?
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 and ordinance 2023-13 on first reading.
Thank you. That'll bring us to item C, please.
I move to authorize the municipal administrator to apply for the U.S. Department of Energy Office of Clean Energy's demonstrations, energy improvements, and rural or remote areas grant program to fund the Timbleberry bypass project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a grant application. John, it looks like Scott has an introduction for this one.
That's correct.
Thank you, Scott. Welcome.
Good evening, Scott Elder with the Electric Department. To give a little bit of background on this, Thimbleberry Trail, as many of you know, also supports the transmission line that comes in for both Green Lake and Blue Lake, provides essentially all the hydropower into the town. That is the only sectional line that doesn't follow a road and is therefore a little bit more vulnerable and susceptible to problems. About a decade ago, there was a slide that took that portion, or a piece of that portion out of commission, and since has been looked at as one of the critical assets that we need to replace, repair, or rethink. Last year, during our budget session, we set aside money to do a little bit of design work on that. I currently have, we have an engineering firm looking at what our options are on that trail. The reason for that last year was expecting that there was going to be federal funding that would be coming out to assist us with the costs of replacing that sectional line. And so the timing, I think, was pretty good. At this point, the Department of Energy, through the bipartisan infrastructure law, has money set aside to the tune of $50 million. That can be anywhere from $500,000 to $5 million per project with no matching funds. And I think this is an excellent opportunity for us to put in for that, as long as we provide a convincing enough story to get their attention. I think it's well worth any effort that we might put in for it. The write-up on it is pretty self-explanatory. I would also put out that, you know, we are asking essentially for permission to apply at this point. Should we be given permission to do so and are awarded, then we would need to come back and accept that award. Or actually, I think we would need to again, ask permission after the initial application if we're encouraged to go forward. So either way, I think this is the first of 2 times to come before the assembly on this.
Great, appreciate it, thank you. We'll call you back up if we have questions. Is there any public comment on this grant resolution?
Good evening, Richard Mean here. Thimbleberry bypass has been a topic for quite a long time. I remember this as being a matter of discussion when Mr. Patacci was here heading the electrical department, and this has been a subject of the assembly in the past. It clearly is something that is very important. What has always stood in the way has been actually the money. I vaguely remember Mr. Patacci saying the cost of the bypass was going to be closer to $5 million. I see here that Mr. Elder has it down at $3 million, and so hopefully that is closer to the truth, because the assembly might be faced with starting a project, and even though there is no match, they still need to, in quotes, match what the shortfall will be to complete the project. As you note, that this is $50 million, and it's grants from $500,000 to $5 million as maximum, so that means there are 10 to 100 grants. So I think we're coming in at pretty high. Any grant we can get for this will be great. It is necessary, but again, this indicates the continued conundrum about our needs and our wants and how we can afford them. There's, if you look at the in the packet, there was the financials for the up till December 31st, and you can see a lot of structural financial issues that are just kind of hovering in the background, and everybody, including every citizen, needs to just take a look at that, and if nothing else, read the summaries and see that these are serious issues for our town. So definitely go for it. I hope you get it, because if we don't get it, then it'll be kind of hard potentially to come up with the cash for this project. So good luck.
Any other public comment on the grant? Assembly deliberation? Kevin?
I'll just say, for those who aren't here, but listening, this is from, it's like a team that worked on this, like you said, Scott, Reed Gable, the sustainability coordinator, and Melissa Henshaw, the public and government relations director. It's a group effort to get these things all, seem to be applying all the time, keep up good work. We'll get there. Thank you. Crystal?
Just have one question. And it had to do with the award amount, so my question is that the project will cost approximately $3 million. Is that how much you see us requesting?
So there are several different options. Excuse me. There are several different options for the Thimbleberry bypass, including rerouting it aerially over the same area but away from slide zones, including going underground over the top and through the slide zone portion. The most expensive case proposed by the engineering firm that we've spoke with would be going along the straight right-of-way, which is where we would love to go. But I think because of the costs there involved in trying to stay outside of the road area and to try and get into the solid rock, and frankly the dangers that we might have in damaging the water supply system to the town in going through that same area, make it look like the least friendly way of approaching. So we've kind of picked the middle path, and we believe that we can make changes likely according to the design if needed, if we were to be awarded this money. So I think that that's currently a good number.
Anything else for Scott while he's up here?
grant before?
No, we've not. It's interesting though, this particular grant, there is no limit on how many applications that a municipality can put in for. And with that, you know, here we look at money, we talk with folks. The question is, do we ask for $5 billion and perhaps shoot ourselves in the foot by asking for something that the DOE may want to go with lower number grants? Also, there are other opportunities that may be more glamorous for the Department of Energy, and because this is, let's say, an unglamorous job in replacing line, we might want to consider going after grants that perhaps the Department of Energy is more interested in funding as well. And these are all internal discussions that we've had, and honestly, our crystal ball is a little foggy, so we're trying to do the best we can.
Scott, I want to thank you for identifying a very clear need for Sitka and then putting together a very focused grant application package on this. I think it's going to be very easy to articulate to DOE the necessity of this, and I think that that's going to be very, very crucial going forward. It's also, like I said, very focused, and so I know you said that there's other things that are more glamorous, but also having power for our entire town is pretty glamorous as well. So I think we can definitely put some makeup on that story and make this one work for them. But no, I appreciate the focusedness of it. I would assume that they're looking for a very distinct project that already has some background work, and we've already done some background work on this. It's been on our back burners for 10 years now. I believe has a good chance of a strong application and a strong possibility to get funded. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. We also will.
Anything else for Scott? Tim?
I'll just echo Stephen's approach too. I think, looking at the infrastructure of our community, I think you can't go wrong by focusing on making sure we keep that up. I mean, I understand there's plenty of other ideas out there that, could, and I think in the future will be an important piece of Sitka's energy, but right now we need to make sure to keep the lights on and figure out what we're going to do at the other end of the road too. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Further assembly deliberation? Jess?
Mr. Yestak?
Yes.
Mr. Mosier?
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Ms. Duncan?
Yes.
And Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Brings us to item D.
I move to approve the consent to assignment of lease between the city and Borough of Sitka, Gordon J. Helam and Myrtle L. Helam, DBA Sitka Electric Inc. and Helam Properties LLC regarding the tidelands seaward of 815 Halbert Point Road, and authorize the municipal administrator to execute this document.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. John, I understand Amy has an introduction to this item. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Assembly members. Amy Ainsley, Planning and Community Development Director. So this consent to assignment is, in essence, kind of a bit of cleanup work. So as described in the memo that was attached to this item, the tidelands were originally leased in 1977 to Gordon Helam and Myrtle Helam, doing business as Sitka Electric. And then after Mr. Helam passed, Mrs. Helam assumed the interest in the lease, and then subsequently kind of tried to give her interest in this lease and the associated properties with their, with the family businesses into a family trust, but didn't go through the formal process of actually assigning the lease to that trust. And then Mrs. Helam passed, and that kind of left the lease in a bit of this kind of gray status of, practically speaking, having a lessee. The property has been, the bill has been being sent to True Value for the last several years and has always been paid timely, but was not technically correct. And so this is essentially a cleanup action to properly identify a lessee, and it's also tidy as well because Helam Properties LLC is also the upland property owner as well. And so it kind of fits with the upland property owner preference that we generally give for highland leases. So as is kind of standard with most of our leases, it is usually required that the assembly approve any assignments of that lease. Again, I think this doesn't represent any really major change in the use of the property or the lessees of the property, and is more just kind of a legal cleanup in terms of making more clear who the legal entity and lessee are in this case.
Great, appreciate that, thank you. Is there any public comment on the assignment of lease? Assembly deliberation? Jess, on the assignment?
Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Yestak?
Yes.
Ms. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mayor Eisenhuis?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Brings us to item E.
I move to approve the promotion of Ron Vinson from Asset Manager to Public Works Director.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. John, is there an introduction?
Yes, Mayor, I do have a quick introduction. As of May 1st, the Public Works Director position was open, and I've been advertising for that position up until now. Actually, I think the position is still posted on the job postings, waiting for tonight. After some consideration, I'm moving ahead with promoting Ron Vinson, a very worthy promotion to the Public Works Director position. I'd like to applaud him for standing up to step into the position. He's been our asset manager since September of 21. He's an engineer by trade with a passion for process improvement, cost reduction, and risk mitigation, and he's brought a different approach to the way we're doing our capital projects and kind of formalizing a lot of our processes citywide. So I think I know he's an excellent candidate, and I know he'll perform very well in this position, but in accordance with code, I'm here for the Assembly's concurrence on that decision, and Mr. Vinson is in the crowd if there are any questions for him.
If anyone didn't know, he's the guy wearing the tie. Thank you, John. Is there any public comment on the promotion of Ron Vinson to Public Works Director?
Good evening, Richard Ween. Not only is Mr. Vinson wearing a tie, but I thought I saw Gucci loafers. So I think I'll get right in. When Mr. Vinson was hired here as an asset manager, one of the things I noted almost instantly was the improvement, for example, of city memos on various projects. They were very considered, and it was just very nice to see those things as a citizen, to get really the thought process and the high down, low down. I hope this job will not prevent him from writing more of these type of memos, or at least supervising them as it relates to what he does. I note that he has a BS in civil engineering. And I also looked at his CV, which was dated May 23rd or something, 2023. So it's certainly up to date. The key here, and I have a couple of questions. One is, it says pursuing a certified asset manager. I'd like to know if he has received it or when he expects to get it. And the other is pursuing professional civil engineering licensure. I did go online for a last professional license search, and I may not have been able to do it correctly, but I didn't see that he had an active license. And so I was wondering if he could speak to that pursuit. The final thing is that if he doesn't have a license in professional civil engineering, how will that affect his ability to sign off on projects which may require some form of expertise? How will that go? I don't know the technicalities of that, but it would seem that in some of the projects, it's nice to write PCE at the end of your name, license. So I'd like to welcome Ron Vincent in his new position, because I'm sure he's going to get it, but those are some basic questions that I'd like to ask. Also, perhaps I'm wrong on the CV. And this is now a while ago, he's been here since 2021. I don't know why I thought he had served in the Coast Guard. And generally on the CV, service is something that you wish to highlight, which I think is a wonderful thing. But I didn't see it on his current CV, so perhaps I heard incorrectly. But welcome, Mr. Vincent, and I can assure you there will be many challenges ahead. And you're going to have to take off that tie and get some Carhartt.
Any other public comment on the promotion of Ron Vincent? Assembly deliberation? Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, John, for getting this packet ready with all this information. I am pleased with this, and I'm going to vote yes. My experience with him, working with him, which has been limited, has been very positive. Met with him and some other folks from the Sustainability Commission to talk about some things, and he was very, just very professional, very willing to reach out, and he's a good communicator, is what I'm trying to say. And that is crucial in that kind of job, and able to facilitate different groups of people, different things to get projects done. For his technical expertise, I mean, it looks good to me, but yes, I'm not an engineer, but I think he's qualified, and we'll approve it. Thank you.
Ron, thank you for volunteering to step up to that position. Two things that I do want to highlight as you go forward. Initially, I may have been hesitant to promote you because I believe that asset management is absolutely crucial to our success going forward. So with that in mind, please don't forget that as we go forward in Public Works. I think that there's already a plan in place to hire someone to replace the the asset management, which is absolutely vital. We can't keep throwing good money after bad money for years and years and years and expect this town to thrive. So please keep that in mind. The other thing that I do appreciate with you and hope to see from the Public Works Department is when you put memos out, you put the positives and the negatives, you put the complete picture out, and that's very important to me. I don't want to be sold a single story. I want to be able to analyze the information given and come to my own conclusion. So I appreciate that ability in the information that you provide to us. I also do appreciate a little help in the correct direction, in the direction that you desire the department to go, because I believe that to be pertinent information. But I want to see the downsides as well as we go forward. So congratulations on receiving the nod from John, and it appears as if the nod from the Assembly this evening. I hope we can do good work. There's a lot of money out there right now, and I want to make sure that we have a solid team that can help capture that, because we may get to a point where we just can't accept any more projects. And I also don't want to get there, so appreciate it. Thank you. Anything else from the Assembly? Jess, on the promotion?
Ms. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Yestak?
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
Yes.
Mr. Mosier?
Yes.
Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. That'll bring us to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item on or off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
Yes, in 3 minutes. Richard Ween here, and believe it or not, it's just before the 7 o'clock hour, so you'll be able to go to the bathroom at your own homes as things work out. One of the important things that there was an article in one of the things that I read about the tourist best practices, and apparently Juneau is going online where people can comment and to do other kinds of things as it relates to tourism, including complaints. And I think that Sitka needs to, I'll say, replicate that. And it goes no better than today because people are actually either don't know where to go to file a concern, or they are just afraid to file a concern. I receive all kinds of information, and actually just today somebody was afraid to come to the mic or didn't know where to go about a bus that was apparently by the Sitka Science Center, which was, I think, heading towards the park, which was barreling very quickly, and they felt that this to be a public nuisance. So I'm speaking for this person, and the bus number was 194. And so I think that in order to deal with tourist issues and to get a real sense of it is to, I'll say, replicate Juneau's effort since we took since we take their stuff all the time. Another important thing to note is that Carnival Cruise, even though they've had record-breaking revenue years, I think they had like $530 billion, in the second quarter they lost 32 cents per share. And the Wall Street just clobbered them. And they were clobbered not because they weren't making money, but because of inherent structural aspects within their business, which will be a problem. And that is, one, inflation, two, the costs of goods and services that are coming up that they can't keep up with. And the problem becomes that their demographic is not the oldsters that everybody thinks about, grandma, grandpa going on these things, these $499 cruises. It's party city, and a lot of young people are coming, and these are the people that are going to be laid off. Unfortunately, Wall Street agrees with me, and one of the structural things that I have a concern about is that if you look at what we have in our interim financial statement, we have a heavy reliance on sales tax. And if something happens to that, I don't want to see Sitka shorted. Thank you.
Hi, Amy Ainsley. I just wanted to note that if anyone in the community has concerns about tourism, we have set up a feedback line, and it's posted on the city's website. It's kept currently under current news. And for anyone who's interested, you can always email sitkatourism@gmail.com, or you can also call 907-747-4088 for any questions or concerns about tourism-related activities. Thank you.
Anyone else for persons to be heard this evening? Seeing none, that would bring us to reports. Just one topic for my report this evening. We did have our first basically 10,000 passenger day of the season. I believe it was on Wednesday. Seems like an eternity ago now, but after the day had slowed down a little bit, I took the liberty to walk up and down the street and talk to some of the vendors to see how that day went. Not everybody was available. A lot of people were still really busy, but the general consensus that I got was if you had a storefront, you said it was too many people. If you had a food truck or you were out on the street like that, you generally liked it because you sold out early and you got to go home. The feeling even from the merchants who standed to profit from that was that 10,000 people in one day was far too many. And I say that not because it was one or two, but it was everybody. Even those who are solely invested in tourism as their profit in Sitka said that. I think that was backed up. It was a day or two later when the Sitka Sound Science Center wrote a letter to the editor indicating that they're going to reduce their hours because they can't provide enough services for not only their staff, but they're just getting overrun at the Science Center as well. They did encourage locals to swing by and knock on the door, and locals could come in, but they're going to be reducing their hours so that they can simply carry on the mission of the Science Center without getting interrupted. So we've talked about hitting the threshold in the past, seeing what the threshold is. I was very interested to see what 500,000 people in a year looked like on this town, and I think that it's fairly well known now that 10,000 people in one day is too many. I believe John already sent a letter to our CLIA representatives with that effect, saying, hey guys, we've hit this. So I don't know exactly how we go and move forward, but guarantee it's going to be a topic of conversation of mine when we do meet with any of the cruise representatives moving forward. That was it for myself this evening. John?
Thanks, Mayor. I want to add on to that really quickly. You are correct that I did have some discussions with CLIA, and I also walked up and down the streets and poked my head in a few of the stores and talked to some of the vendors. I know I personally, trying to do work at City Hall, our bandwidth was gone, and our computers slowed to a crawl and our phones weren't working. So I know other communities have had these issues before. I know Juneau had these issues when they had their cruise boom, and I reminded some of the folks that I talked to in the cruise industry of some of the early discussions we had about overcommitment of Sitka resources and where is that balance. So we're learning that right now, and we're going to have some good conversations. I know they've opened the door. Well, we've always had an open door to be able to discuss these things, and having input from the task force is going to be very helpful, because we still want to maintain what is Sitka. How do we keep that? People are coming here for a reason, but we still have to have our quality of life and the things that Sitkans enjoy. We still want those to be present. As far as the rest of my report, I have a draft of a new taxi ordinance. It's been in the works for a few years. A couple times it's been put on the back burner, but now it's up, it's active, and it's just that, it's a draft. It's going before police and fire. Tomorrow is the first public forum. I'd like to get lots of input on it. We'll probably do at least one other session with police and fire. We've tried to advertise this as much as possible. It's in today's newspaper talking about it, so we really want to hear if this works. I approached this draft, well, first and foremost, in terms of public safety. When we've got transportation providers, we want to make sure that the people that are using those transportation providers, whether it's a bus, whether it's a shuttle, it's a private tour, it's a taxi, that they're safe when they're in that vehicle or form of transportation. So public safety is first and foremost here. We've also heard from the citizens about increased access to taxis. We've seen in the past that if tours make more money, sometimes the taxi providers don't want to be there, and vice versa. So we're trying to find some ways to ensure that taxis are available, and we've used some standards nationwide. These are national standards that we've used to try to facilitate that, and we have looked to we've looked to Juneau as example. This one's very close to Juneau's because they have similar challenges as we do. They have a high level of tourism in a region close to ours, but we've also looked at Bethel. We've looked at Anchorage. Bethel, I think I've mentioned this fact before. Bethel has more taxis per capita than anywhere in the United States. So we looked at their code as well to see how they did things. So we really want the input on it. The idea is to get something that works and get the transportation needs of the community and visitors met. Next thing is open finance is not working so great right now. I think it's probably because of the fiscal year changeover and calendar year changeovers. We've reached out to Tyler. I know I've reached out to Tyler Technologies, and they've been non-responsive over the past week or so, so I'm working on that. Hope to have that up and running again soon. And then the last thing, this is something I'm going to throw out there for the Assembly to hear as I consider this. I'm having a lot of concerns, especially with a lot of federal monies out there and grants funding projects, I'm having lots of concerns on change orders and cost overruns and the cost of work. I know from my federal background that to prevent a lot of change orders and cost overruns, we pretty much specified that everything needed to be a firm fixed price contract, a not to exceed amount. And that, when we talk about risk mitigation, the plan is to remove the risk from the CDS, the cost risk, the time risk, the scope risk, all of that. So I'm going to explore moving all of our bid packages towards firm fixed price contracting where a dollar amount is set, the scope is set, and any change orders will be borne by the contractor. And it will basically eat into their profit margin. So it hopefully reduces our risk and gets a more defined scope to make sure the projects can move forward. So we'll be exploring that, and we'll hear more soon. Thanks.
Brian?
No report.
Any liaison representative reports? Chris?
So on the 22nd of this month, the GPIP board met, and the big one on their agenda was looking at the 4 separate plans for the potential haul out. They ended up voting on one of the concepts, and they chose concept number 4. I believe that is coming before us on the 25th of July. Yeah, okay, 25th of July. It'll come before us, so I'm not going to go too much into it because we're going to have it in our packets coming up. But one of the important things about us voting on it is once we vote to approve, or if we decide to move forward with this concept, the city will be able to go and start applying for all the environmental permits. And that is going to be one of the longest parts of this whole project. It can take up to 16 months. So that's going to be a big step for us and moving forward. So sure, we'll all have a lot of information for that July 25th meeting. But yeah, big step forward in that area.
Any other liaisons? Jess, no report.
Monday, July 17th is the first day to file for candidate petitions. Tuesday, July 25th is the last scheduled meeting to introduce ordinance for charter changes and ballot measures. Friday, August 4th at 5 p.m. is the deadline for filing candidate petitions. Tuesday, August 8th is the last scheduled meeting to adopt ordinances for charter and ballot measures. Tuesday, October 3rd is the municipal election. And then we also have various boards and commission vacancies on Animal Hearing Board, Health Needs and Human Services, Local Emergency Planning Committee, and Tree and Landscape Committee.
Great, thank you. Any other reports this evening? Seeing none, that would bring us to adjournment. Oh, hold on, Jess is clerking. There's got to be something else.
Move to adjourn?
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Assembly. We are adjourned. Thank you, staff, for your time this evening. Appreciate it.
Great idea.